What's going on, guys? My name is Trevor of Visual Creativity, and today I'm going to be talking to you about SD cards. More specifically, SD cards that work best with the Panasonic GH5 to help it maximize its potential when shooting in cinematic 4K at 400 megabytes per second and 4K at 60 frames per second. I'm going to be mainly talking about the Delkin Prime series, which is a UHS-II SD memory card that reads at 300 megabits per second and writes at 100 megabits per second. Now, just because Delkin says that it writes at 100 megabits per second does not mean that it's going to consistently write at 100 megabits per second. It should write at a minimum of 60 megabits per second, and we know that because the case has a V60 on it, and the card inside also does, and that is the industry's way of letting us know that it should never really write any lower than 60 megabits per second, which is perfect for us because Panasonic tells us that V60s and up are perfectly fine for the GH5. We'll have full capabilities and functionalities. The biggest problem that I ran into when I was doing my SD card research was I didn't find any reviews that really proved to me that it worked. I found some where cards lasted only 7 seconds, and that's useless. I found others where they lasted up to 10 minutes, but if you're shooting wedding videos or anything with a long recording time, 10 minutes doesn't really get the job done. So like I said earlier, I went with the Delkin Prime series, and what I'm going to do for you guys is I'm going to do a continual recording test and really prove to you that this SD card works, shooting 400 megabits per second. And after that, if you want to get your own, links in the description below. I got the 128. That's plenty enough storage for me. There's 64s if you want to save some money. There's 256 if you really want to go big. And then I'll link some V90s too if you want to go one tier up from the V60s. But let's get into that test. You can see the V60 on the front that I was talking about earlier, but I wanted to slow this down in the back so you can really take a look at these specs that the card claims to have. This is all subject to change when you're shooting in different quality levels, so don't buy things based on those stats alone. I'm using this one first because you can see it came loose during shipping, so if it doesn't work, I want to be able to return it. Now, it's kind of hard to see how to get into these. There really is no easy way in, so I decided to just tear into it. And I kind of make it look difficult, but believe me, it's not that hard. The biggest difference you're going to notice on these UHS-II SD cards versus maybe some of your older ones is that on the back here they're going to have 2 rows of pins, and this is what allows them to read and write faster than some of the old cards. I'm going to show my old card here, and that has a 95 megabyte per second max versus the 300 on the Delkin, and it only has 1 set of pins. So we'll load that into the camera and then we'll get started. First things first, since this is a brand new SD card, we just got to format it so it's ready for the camera. And now we're going to select the cinematic 4K at 400 megabytes per second to do our testing. You'll see that it says 42 minutes and 12 seconds of estimated record time. Unfortunately, we don't get quite that long, but we get pretty close. Now during the test, for reference, you'll see a number in the bottom right that's counting down. That's how much time is left on the SD card. And a number in the top left that's counting up. That's how long you've been continually recording. I put the end of the test in real time so you can see exactly how long we ran for. It's about 34 minutes and 16 seconds. And then you'll get this notification, which means you can't record any longer. And this is just some sample footage of what that looked like coming straight out of the GH5. Now, I have had one problem with these Delkin cards, and that is that when you finish recording, they take about 5 to 10 seconds to finish writing. It doesn't seem to matter if it's a short video or a long video, it's still taking about 5 to 10 seconds. So if you're shooting a lot of action and you need to be able to start and stop your videos very quickly, these cards really probably aren't for you. And if that's the case, you're probably going to want to bump up to the V90s, which unfortunately come with a 2 times price increase, but if that's a sticking point for you, it's definitely worth it to spend the extra money. For me, I went with 2 V60s because since the GH5 has 2 SD card slots, I could fill my camera with 2 reliable cards and not have anything to worry about. But for you, I'd say pick up whatever works for you. No one knows your shooting style better than you do. If you're looking for cards, like I said, link in the description below. I have a bunch of different kind of V60s and a few V90s in there, so pick up whatever works for you. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more videos from me in the future. I'll see you next time, guys.